The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As much as it pains me to say this, we're here on the House floor today because the House Republican majority has chosen to prioritize debate and passage of a bill to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. That's not what my constituents think is the most important thing Congress should tackle this week or this year. And I bet it's not what your constituents think either. It's easy to mock this legislation because it's so inane and embarrassing, and we have. But its very existence and the fact that House Republicans have chosen to waste time and taxpayer dollars to bring it up for a vote is worth considering. So let's talk about the real Gulf of America, the Gulf in America, the Gulf between the ambitions and priorities of this White House, aided and abetted by the House majority, and the needs of the American people. The gulf that makes Republicans think that it's more important to give tax cuts to billionaires than to make sure that America's children and veterans and seniors have food and housing and medical services, and that we protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. The gulf that causes the Speaker to bring ridiculous legislation to the floor to flatter the President and appease his base, rather than meet the needs of the American people. Americans want a Congress and a White House that solves problems rather than creates them. Americans aren't asking to rename the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, public polling, including on Fox, says that nearly 70% of Americans oppose that executive order and this legislation to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Like many Americans, I follow the news each day with trepidation. Many folks tell me that the chaos and missteps of this administration are too painful or upsetting to follow, and they've tuned it out, because the only guarantee we have is that every day the president or his administration will have done something dumber or more dangerous than the day before. Each day brings its own self-inflicted crisis with this White House, and millions of Americans are exhausted by it. They're pleading with their elected officials to act, to do something, anything, to bring normalcy back to this country, to bring decency back to this country. There was a time when American public life was guided by a genuine sense of duty and a converse fear of shame, but today neither appear to hold much sway. Instead, we have a White House filled with charlatans, made-for-TV personalities, con men, snake oil salesmen, grifters, billionaires, and criminals, all using the power of the federal government to enrich themselves at the expense of the American people and to punish their political opponents. Last week was President Trump's 100th day in office, a customary benchmark by which we measure the successes and failures of a new president's term. I think it's safe to say that Trump's first 100 days have been a disaster. His tariff policies are likely to cause a recession. Millions of people have seen their retirement savings evaporate. Families don't know if they're going to be afford basic goods, much less Christmas dolls. Businesses, big and small, are paralyzed by uncertainty and reducing their spending, and many small businesses may not survive. To add insult to injury, when faced with these facts, what does the president say? Deal with it. Those are the president's own words. The tariffs will be painful, but it's a price that must be paid. But paid by whom? It won't be Trump or the billionaires in his cabinet or at his golf clubs. No, it's going to be real people, people who work for a living, who will have to pay the price for his ill-conceived trade war. It's not going to be guys like Bessent or Lutnick who have multi-million-dollar mansions and fly on private planes. They'll be just fine. However, for working parents, according to Trump, maybe the kids will have $2 instead of $30, and I don't know who has $30. And maybe the moms who live in my district who will have to pay more for the stroller they use to transport their kids to daycare and doctors and the grocery store. So much for the guy who said he was going to bring down prices on day one. And it's worth noting that just yesterday in our rules markup, our Republican colleagues voted once again to keep the Trump tariffs in place. Over a month ago, they rigged the rules of the House to prevent Congress from voting to end the Trump tariffs. They literally voted to stop time, to say that for the purposes of protecting the Trump tariffs, there's only one day between now and the end of September. That will prevent anyone from being able to force a vote on whether to end Trump's tariffs. So they're dragging down our economy and American families with it. And that's just the terrible Trump tariffs. In these first 100 days, the administration has cut services at Social Security, fired medical staff at VA hospitals, and withheld aid to food banks, children's health programs, and community violence prevention efforts. They've waged a political war against universities and scientific research and illegally frozen over $400 billion in congressionally appropriated funds, including billions of dollars to FEMA, to everyone from local firefighters to states that have been affected by natural disasters. This White House has issued hundreds of controversial executive orders, many of which courts have deemed illegal or unconstitutional. And every day, this administration is disappearing hundreds of people, sending them to faraway detention centers without any due process that would expose mistakes and lies about some people who are not criminals and in some cases are even citizens and therefore should not be deported. The damage that's being caused right now by this administration to our communities, to our international standing, to our national security and national fabric will take years to unwind. But eager to do their part and contribute to the chaos, House Republicans continue to find novel ways to bring this chamber to new lows. This week, Republicans are putting forward two bills, one that's pretty much a redundant effort to counter Confucius Institutes, and another to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The second bill may be the dumbest bill brought to the floor during the 6 years I've served in Congress. With all of the important work this Congress should be tackling, the Speaker and House Republicans have chosen to indulge the President in a whim that the American public does not support. Frankly, if I had to vote on a bill like this, I would find it deeply embarrassing. And I know my Republican colleagues are smart people, they're not dumb, so I have to feel that they share this embarrassment. Unless they're members of a cult of personality based around a dear leader who they're required to obey or risk retribution, and upon whom they bestow endless compliments and praise in order to seek personal favors. And it doesn't matter how much damage he causes, how much money he wastes, how many lives and family he hurts. It doesn't matter if he causes a recession. It doesn't matter if he encourages influence peddling and grift with a Trump coin or his Gulf of America merch, or if he gives insider stock tips before taking executive action. House Republicans seem to always do what Trump says. So if he wants to do something as dumb as rename the Gulf of Mexico, Republicans apparently will fall in line. We'll watch them twist themselves into pretzels to come up with increasingly convoluted rationale for the president's actions. Today will surely be a masterclass in delusion. Further adding to the chaos, this month House Republicans are expected to finish drafting the text of their reconciliation bill, through which they're planning to cut health care benefits to seniors and children and people with disabilities and cut nutrition assistance to the poor, in order to pay for a huge tax giveaway to billionaires and big business. Despite more than 40 years of empirical evidence showing that Republicans' trickle-down economics are a resounding failure, Republicans are nonetheless pushing ahead with their party orthodoxy. We have more than enough evidence that trickle-down economics does not work. It doesn't help the middle class, it doesn't create jobs, it doesn't increase business investment, and it doesn't grow the economy. What these policies actually do is allow companies and their shareholders to pocket more profits at the expense of everyone else. It's because of trickle-down economics that we now have some of the most extreme income inequality in this country in our nation's history. To pay for this giveaway to the rich, Republicans are going to take away health care benefits and food assistance and cut critical federal investments in our local communities, in our democracy, in the environment, and in our national security. All so millionaires and billionaires can get an extra buck. It's horrifying, it's immoral, and it's un-American. Unlike many of my Republican colleagues, I have participated in multiple town halls this year to hear from my constituents. One message that I hear consistently is that people are scared. These are good, honest, hard-working Americans who in one way or another have been forced to rely on Medicaid or Medicare or SNAP or WIC or Head Start or Social Security or LIHEAP in order to make ends meet for their families. And they're rightfully scared that Republicans are planning to gut those programs. We'll surely hear all kinds of mental gymnastics from our colleagues about how millionaires really need that extra tax cut, or how cutting Medicaid won't really lead to a loss of coverage or service. We'll hear tortured arguments from Republicans to hide what they're really doing. When you take a step back and look at everything that's happening, this White House, in concert with Elon Musk and congressional Republicans, have put the country on a dark and troubling path, a fear-based path. It's leading us to a place that has more in common with Stalin's Russia than the free society envisioned by our founding fathers. It's heartbreaking to see the lengths to which some people will go to destroy the ideas and institutions that for decades have made this country great. Mr. Speaker, I think it goes without saying that I rise in strong opposition to this rule, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman